Shpael.
C-A-P-I-E-L.
Yeah, see, it's a real word.
It is a real word.
And then we'll have about a 30-minute Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, if you want to ask Wendy something, there will definitely be a time for that. So, go for it.
Some good questions too. So I thought that I would just kind of sit right here a little better, but I feel like I'm doing this. Like I need sunglasses or something. But anyways, so this morning we talked about David and how he waited well, and I was bragging on him and saying what a great waiter he was. But there were a couple times in David's life where he didn't wait well. And I thought it'd be a good idea this afternoon to address that. And I have a college student. My daughter will be a junior in college. And so I was talking to her about, what should I say to the younger girls? And what would you want to hear? And so she definitely said, talk about the times that David didn't wait well. And so that's what we're going to take a look at a part of David's life where he did not wait well, and the circumstances that came about. And these are probably lesser known stories of David's life. We hear about his with Goliath, the whole story of Goliath. We hear about the time where he had an extramarital affair with Bathsheba, and then he arranged for Bathsheba's husband to be put out on the front line. So technically he arranged for his murder. And because of his sin of adultery and his sin of murder, his life was wretched with, and basically the consequence for his sin, I should say, when Nathan confronted him, was that your family would die and live by the sword. So when he got to be king, you would think all his waiting would be over, everything would be well. But he made some decisions even after he was king that stayed with him for the rest of his life. But the story that I want to talk about here is, and I'll actually reference two different stories, were before he was made king. But there were times of depression for David. And it's sensitive. I'm sensitive to David's time period when these stories happened, especially now, because my 20-year-old suffers with a very high level of anxiety, OCD, and depression. And so it's been hard for me to understand depression and its effect on people because I've not ever lived that story. But she was diagnosed with depression when she was a junior in high school, and now is going into her junior year of college. And so it's like front and center with me now as a mom, and learning to live with somebody with depression. So perhaps you know somebody that has faced that. Do I need a microphone? Oh, wow, I need a microphone.
Yeah. Not for those listening here, but for the recording.
I can hold it. Are you sure? Yeah, I'll hold it. And that way it's not right in front of my face. So are we good? Okay. So, and the Bible doesn't talk a lot about depression and mental illness, but this is one case where we see David definitely suffering with it. And it doesn't come out and say he has depression, but he is in a place of depression, and waiting can definitely bring you, even if it's not a chemical imbalance in your body, can definitely bring you to a place of depression because you are waiting on God, you're waiting on God, you're waiting on God. And as I said earlier, in many cases, you're watching someone else live your dream, and you're trying your best to do all the right things, but still things aren't happening as soon as you think they should happen. So let's take a look at David's story. And this is a new waiting well statement. And I wrote the book with 5 waiting well statements. And the Bible study that's coming out is a 6-week Bible study, and I only had 5 waiting well statements. So I was like, all right, Lord, I think I need one more of these for week 6. And so this is the 6th waiting well statement. And it's this: waiting well waits with God, not on God. Waiting well waits with God and not on God. And I want to explain the difference between the two.
And I get caught in this first one all the time. Waiting on God gives way to actions based on human reasoning. Waiting on God gives way to actions based on human reasoning. And it's when we feel like we're waiting, we feel like, okay, we're going to wait on God, we're going to wait on God, but then we start thinking things through. And I think, oh gosh, this is really good, I need to do this. Or some really great counselor or a person that we really trust and love gives us some advice. Yeah, that's what I need to do. And we never really took it back before the Lord. So we start reasoning and thinking and making our decisions based on our own logic and our own understanding. So that's waiting on God, as opposed to waiting with God. And waiting with God experiences God while waiting on his instructions. Waiting with God experiences God while waiting on his instructions. And I touched a little bit on this morning, that when we're in that phase where it doesn't seem like anything's happening, I'm waiting, and everybody else seems to be moving forward with their life. And I've gone to college, and I have gotten out of college, and I have college debt, and I'm waiting for this perfect job, and I thought this was what my major was supposed to be, and I can't find a job in my major. Or everybody around me is getting married, and I'm a bridesmaid, and I'm never a bride. Or everybody has a boyfriend, and I don't have one. Or, fill in the blank. And the idea behind waiting with God, as I emphasized in many of the waiting well statements this morning, is to try to experience God while you're with him. I'm teaching my son this lesson right now. And the word is, I want to explain the lesson that I'm teaching my son here in just a minute, but I want to give you a word. There's a Hebrew word in the Old Testament is translated in Hebrew. The New Testament is mostly translated in Greek, mostly translated in Hebrew. There's some Arabic in there. But my favorite word in the whole entire Bible is the word yadah. And it's Y-A-W-D-A-H, or it's Y-A with a little accent mark D-A, yadah. And I recognize that I speak Southern Hebrew, so it may be saying it a little bit wrong. But let me tell you why this word is my favorite word. In most cases in the Old Testament, not every case, every time you see the word K-N-O-W, it's not what this word means. You really do have to look it up. And the more you study the Bible, and the more you start doing word studies and going on and I don't mean having to have big Bible dictionaries either. You can do this on studylight.org or BibleHub.com. These are two free sites that I use. But when you look that word up, it means to know, K-N-O-W. I never liked when a word defines itself. Know means to know. Well, thanks, I appreciate that. But when you expand a little bit, you do a little bit more research, the word in a nutshell means this: to experience God, or experiential knowledge of God. And that's how I like to define waiting with God. It's experiences with God, experiencing God while waiting on God. Here's an example that I was going to say about my son. I'm trying to teach him the discipline and also the blessing of tithing. Since I was a little girl making $2.25 for a night of babysitting, yes, that tells you how old I am. I made 25 cents an hour, or 50 cents an hour at that time. My dad would be filling out the envelopes on Saturday night. I would come home and he would say, "Give me your quarter," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, just me $2.25, Give me your quarter. This is your tithe." And he taught me the discipline of tithing. And it's just been through the years of my life and continuing to practice that discipline that I see the blessings of it, of giving God 10% and living off the 90%. I'm trying to teach my son this. And so we've heard of Dave Ramsey. Okay. I'm going to get back to David here, I promise, in just a second. But so with the Dave Ramsey, you have your little envelopes. And so we figured out Griffin's envelopes, and one of his envelopes is for his gas. And he goes and gets his check cashed and brings it home, and I show him how to take his percentage out that I said he was going to save, and how much he's going to spend, and his tithe, and his his different things that he pays for. And you put it in there, and he's like, he wants things. And I said, I promise you put that gas money in there, and you tithe. Make sure you tithe. You put all your envelopes, and you don't miss your tithe. And I said, and then I want you to do this. I want you to pray over your tank of gas. And he looked, like right there at the gas station. I was like, it's not like you have been on your knees or anything, but in your head, as you're pumping your gas, say, God, help me make good decisions while I drive this week. And I even have asked God many times when my husband and I did not have, we still don't have a lot of money because we have a kid, a student at college, that tells you right there. So we don't have a lot of extra spending money, and I still pray over my tank of gas, but I would literally say, multiply this gas. Please multiply this gas. Because this is our budget this week, and this is our travel schedule this week. And so I told Griffin, I said, pray over your gas, and ask God to help you make good decisions where you drive. And so he texted me, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, we're about third or fourth week into his summer job, and he texted me from the gas station and said, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, tell me. He's like, God is awesome. I said, well, I know that, so tell me why. And he said, because I filled up my tank. I've been driving all week, and I just now filled up my tank again. And I found $20 in my wallet that I didn't know was in there. He experienced God. That's experiential knowledge of God working in his life. He honored God with his tithe. He prayed and he asked God to bless what he had been sacrificing and to bless what he was doing with his time and with his resources. And he got to experience a blessing from God. And when he got back home to refill his gas money from his envelope, he was like, Mom, I have an extra $50 in my gas envelope. Did you put extra money in there? And I said, no, I didn't. I don't have $50 to give you for gas. And he was like, God is good. So that's what I mean when I say waiting well experiences God while you wait. You have these moments with God that only the two of you might experience. And it's just such a great little, I like to call them secrets with God and little surprises with God. And it's in these times that you learn, you develop what I call a trust bank. So when you get into a place where it's really, really hard for me to continue to wait on you, God. It's really, really hard for me not to do this because it makes sense for me to do this. Again, back to the human reasoning. I'm talented in this. Maybe this is the job I should take. Of course it is. I'm talented in this. And we miss out on experiencing God because we're relying on our own thoughts and our own reasoning. So waiting with God rather than just waiting on God are two different concepts there. I want to look here back to David's story in 1 Samuel 27. And as I said, these are lesser known stories. But David, and I pulled out my chronological Bible. I always carry it with me just so I can make sure I'm getting things in order as they happened. But David has been running for his life. He's had opportunities to kill Saul, and he has not. He's actually spent some time with his men. His army is building, and he's on the run from Saul. And he actually had a moment where Saul was like, okay, you're right, I'm going to stop pursuing you. And the spirit of anger and pride and bitterness and all the things that were raging in Saul made him, he just reneged on that and continued to chase David. But when we wait on God instead of with God, and we start relying on our own understanding and our own reasoning, we make some critical decisions in our life. And I want to look at 1 Samuel 27, and this is what it says. But David kept thinking to himself. This is the point here. Thinking to himself, someday Saul is going to get me. The best thing I can do is escape to the Philistines. Then Saul will stop hunting for me in the Israelite territory, and I will finally be safe. So a couple things here. He was thinking to himself, the best thing I can do for myself. Our thoughts can really lead us down the wrong path. Our thoughts can really lead us down the wrong path. They're going to direct, our feelings will direct our actions. And I remember being young, and in my mind I still think I am young, but the calendar tells me that I'm not. And the mirror tells me that I'm not as young as I think I am. But I remember making decisions based on how I felt. And one of the things that I wish that I had learned early on is not to do that. Because our feelings lie to us. Our feelings will lie to us. That's why it's crucial to get the truth in us. The truth being the Word of God. There's all kinds of definitions of truth. And that's a lesson for another day. But the only truth, the real truth, and the life-sustaining truth is the Word of God. And the sooner that you get this truth in you, the stronger that you're going to be to defeat the lies of the enemy and your own feelings that will lie to you every single time. When it comes to these places of depression and waiting with God and making crucial decisions. Because David had been anointed king. He knew what the truth was. And at this point, he knew he was going to be king. Many people had told him he was going to be king. So he knew what the truth was. But he was in a place where he allowed his thinking to dictate his actions. And he justified and reasoned, I'm going to go on, I might as well just go on and live with the Philistines. Does anybody know who the Philistines were? If you do, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. The Philistines were the nemesis of God's people. Remember, David killed the Philistine, he killed the giant. And for a short time, the Philistines were basically immobile because David had killed their hero. But all throughout the Old Testament, there's just constant battles with the Philistines. So what David did here was made the decision based on his feelings to go to enemy camp. They knew exactly who he was. He was pretty brave, I think, to walk right into enemy camp and not think he was going to get killed. But in his own mind, he thought, I might as well just go with the Philistines because David's going to kill me anyway. Saul's going to kill me anyways. So when we base our actions on our feelings, it's going to take us to places that we would not ordinarily go. And I've gone, even in my adult life, allowed that to happen. Go places that I would not ordinarily go because of how I was feeling. David, in his right mind, surely would not have gone into the Philistine camp. And then to do what he did next was truly amazing. And this was not the first time, by the way, that he went to the Philistine camp. In 1 Samuel 21, it tells the story of another time that he went into the Philistine camp. And he actually, at that point, acted like a madman. And acted like he was having a seizure, and he made himself foam at the mouth and everything. I mean, it was just, it was like I said, he's in this season of depression. And so he'd been there before. And he had come out on the other side, and he wrote this beautiful psalm. He wrote, I think it was Psalm 34 was written after the first time that he encountered the king and the Philistines. And he had been running from the enemy. And so if you get a chance, read Psalm 121 and then read Psalm 34 right after it, where David says, taste and see that the Lord is good, he says. So this is the second time that he's reached this place of depression where he's let his feelings dictate and direct his steps. So we have to be really careful not to do that, or we're going to end up going somewhere that we're not supposed to be going. And I don't even mean a bad place. Sometimes we might make wrong decisions and take wrong jobs or be in wrong relationships that are not meant for us to be in. It might be really wonderful opportunities, but it's not where we're supposed to be. So would go to places we ordinarily wouldn't go. And according to my study, he stayed there. It wasn't a quick stay. He stayed there a year and over a year and 4 months. So it wasn't like he went and then he said, "Oh gosh, I'm not supposed to be here. Let me get out of here." He made life there. He set up life there. And it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous to let our feelings dictate direct our steps, and then to stay there in the wrong place and set up camp. He had truly not walked away from God, but felt, I don't believe he ever walked away from God, even in his sin, I do believe, because I sin all the time and I'm not walking away from God, I'm just making that decision. But he made the choice to stay there and to set up camp with them. But we don't see a movement of God in our life, and we take matters into our own hands. And that's what he did. Just, that's the first thing, is that our feelings will lead us to a place that we wouldn't ordinarily go. And then secondly, they'll lead us to seek approval from people that we wouldn't ordinarily associate with. He asks King Agesh if he can stay there, and King Agesh says, sure. And King Agesh even gave him a town. This is the enemy, even gave him a town. And Agesh was not doing that to be really out of the kindness of his heart. He was doing that like, I'm going to get him to stay here. And then eventually he'll start hating the Israelites and he'll be on my side. So King Agesh had this ulterior motive. But David was seeking home in the place of the enemy, in a place he would not ordinarily go. And now he's seeking approval of somebody that he would not ordinarily seek approval from. Because who did he want approval from ultimately? God. So he's gone somewhere now that he shouldn't be going. He's associating with people that he shouldn't be associated with. And he is seeking approval of people, of the main person that he shouldn't be seeking approval from. And then lastly, when we let our feelings dictate and our human reasoning dictate us, we end up doing things and participating in things that we would not ordinarily participate in. This was a low period in David's life. He basically became a renegade. And he started killing almost for the sport of it. And to gain the approval of the Philistines, who, by the way, the other Philistine kings ended up rejecting David, which I think is kind of ironic, because he was there and he got King Agesh's support, but they were going out to war against the Amalekites, and the other kings rejected David. And King Agesh said, dude, I would let you go with me, but they don't like you, so you gotta go. So he ended up being rejected by his own enemies. That's a twist of the story that goes in another direction. But he spent a good year of his life murdering and looting, something that he would never ordinarily do, because he was in this place where God wasn't moving fast enough. He didn't sense God. We don't really know what his story was at this time and where his mind was. We can only infer. But later in David's life, when he got his things straightened out, and his sin with Bathsheba, they ended up having a child, and that child died. And that was part of the punishment for David's life, being in constant turmoil and living and dying by the sword. His family would live and die by the sword. But he regained, and he got back right with God, and eventually he really was a good king, and he had a son named Solomon, which you might have heard of. Wrote many of the Proverbs, wrote Ecclesiastes, that was considered the wisest king of all. And David wanted to build God a temple. He said, please, I want to build you a temple. And maybe you know the story, but Solomon was allowed to build the temple and David was not. And he said, because your hands have blood on them. And so because of his decision back then, something he did not receive something over here. So we never know. This is why it's so crucial to stay in a right relationship with God and make our decisions based on His word and His leading. And even if it means staying still and experiencing Him and enjoying Him, because we never know how the decisions today are going to affect our decisions tomorrow. Because He wanted to build that temple and He wasn't allowed to because of this period of His life. So I think if I knew anything now, if I could know anything then, when I was younger, this would be it. And that would be, number one, not to rush the weight that I said earlier, but don't base my decisions on my feelings. And do everything that I can to enjoy and experience God while I'm waiting on Him to move in my life. Because David had these moments where he did not. And he finally, he did come around, but he did have these moments. And I thought it was important to point that out. So if our feelings are going to lead us wrong, most of the time, how do we, in our thoughts, because remember we said David thought, then how do we change our thought life? That's the key. Because the enemy wants to trip us up with our thinking. We compare ourselves to other people, what they have, what they're doing, their successes. And the verse that has been crucial to me, even as an adult, I have a problem with my thought life. I grew up just having very low self-esteem. I don't know what y'all call them now, because I don't have a lot of young people around me, but we used to call them bobos or knockoffs. Like, we had these pants, this designer, Gloria Vanderbilt, and am I speaking anybody's language? Does anybody know who Gloria Vanderbilt is in here? Okay. Gloria Vanderbilt was our designer of the day. I don't even know what y'all's designer of the day is, honestly. I get my clothes at Goodwill, so I don't know. Or a thrift store. But she had a little swan right here on her pocket, and and her name was across the back of your stitch across her pocket and on the back, and I just wanted to wear those jeans so bad. And my mother was not going to pay $29.99 for their jeans. And so I remember getting the knockoffs or the bobos, and they didn't have the swan on them, And so everybody knew that I didn't have the real ones. Okay, so when you're in elementary school and your middle school, that kind of stuff matters to you. Maybe not so much now, but still, in those moments, the enemy started gaining ground in my head early on. He knew he couldn't steal my salvation. He knew he could keep me from being effective in the kingdom of God through my thought life. So it wasn't until I was older that I learned this verse, and y'all probably know this, but it's something that I've just learned in the past 10 years, and it's Philippians 4:8. We can replace our wrong thinking with right thinking with this verse. And this is Paul writing. And he says this: brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And because I'm a little bit of a word nerd, I went over to the Message translation. I don't know if y'all have ever looked at anything up in the Message translation, but I love it as a cross-reference. And I thought this was I love the way it's worded in the Message. This is again Philippians 4:8. But listen to what he says here. This is the way Eugene Peterson paraphrases this. Summing it up, friends, I'll say you'll do your best by filling your minds and meditating on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not things to curse. So we can redirect. Think of a GPS, redirecting, recalculating. We can recalculate ourselves when we start to go to those wrong places. And we just put our foot right over there and we're like, this doesn't feel, the Holy Spirit's going to tell you what's right and what's wrong. He will. You'll know. There'll be a check in your spirit. Instead of pushing through, just recalculate yourself. Come back to this verse and go, this isn't the right place for me to go, or these aren't the right thoughts that I'm supposed to be thinking. And the only way to know that is to be in the Word of God. And I'm just going to push, before I close, I'm going to push one thing. And I don't know if y'all have a quiet time with God every single day. I didn't when I was in college. And I didn't when I was an early married woman. I didn't until I was about 33 or 34. Griffin was born around 30, when I was 33, the year I was turning 34. And that's when I started having a quiet time. And I said I'm turning 50. So the better part of my life, I didn't get up and have a quiet time with God every day. And I know that that's the key to why things went awry for me and didn't look the way they were supposed to, I thought they were supposed to look. But Proverbs 31 Ministries has an app called First 5. And it's free, FIRST, the number 5. It's in the App Store and it's free. And the idea in designing the First 5 app was to challenge you to spend the first 5 minutes with God every single day. You might be thinking, how in the world am I going to spend 5 minutes with God? I was thinking that. What am I going to say to God for 5 minutes? Bless you. It's a little short reading, and then there's a link called More Moments that you can click on if you want to go deeper. You can even set your phone to remind you to go back to the more moments. Like maybe you want to start in the morning. It has an alarm clock and it'll wake you up. So you want to start in the morning with the main teaching. And then you want to go to bed with the more moments, which is just a little bit more teaching from that same passage. So you can set your alarm or a notification to buzz at like 11 o'clock, whatever time you're, I don't know. Blair, my daughter might stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm in bed by 10, but whatever time you want it to be, maybe, you know, you want to have another little time with God before dinner, but you can set a notification for that. But I just want to encourage you, it's free and it's a way to start. We just started in the book of Ruth, and actually Nikki is writing this go around on the First 5, and you know, her book is on the book of Ruth. So we invited her to be part of the First 5 team. I'm not actually on this series of writing. I took a short sabbatical from First 5 to finish the Bible study, so I won't be on there, but I will rotate back on in the next one. The next one's a real encourager. We're talking about suffering. Don't you want to get on for that one? It starts in August. But I just want to encourage you to have a time with God every single day, because that is going to be the best way to start the whole redirecting of your thoughts, so that you're not going to the places that you shouldn't go, doing the things that you shouldn't do, and seeking approval from people that you shouldn't be seeking approval from. So I think that's about it. Does anybody have any questions? Anything you want to share or say? Brave enough to speak up?
So I think something that I tend to struggle with is
Can y'all hear her?
No. Okay, sorry.
Is this gonna make a rare sound when I go over here?
Sorry.
I think something that I struggle with personally is when something goes wrong, not knowing whether I should keep going or whether that's a sign from God that it's something that I need to let go. And sometimes that's doesn't always feel like I get a clear-cut answer. So how do you deal with something like that? Like having your book rejected 13 times, and obviously it ended up working out for you. But I just don't know how many times that's something I would go through and still think that was something God wanted me to do. So how do you know when to keep going and when He wants you to stop?
You didn't tell me there were those questions I couldn't answer. I'm just kidding. I wish I had like a formula, but there's not one, unfortunately, and that is a question I'm sure everybody in here probably, if they're not asking themselves now, have asked themselves before. For me, I did quit writing for a while. The rejections hurt so bad. I said, forget it, I'm not doing this anymore. And I just didn't pick anything back up again. I did do some devotional writing for Proverbs 31, but as far as any work on my book, I just stopped. And then one day I was brave enough to start again. And this time decided to get a writing coach to work with me. Because I think that's probably why I'm getting rejected, because I need to improve on my writing. So I do share this in the book. A sweet friend of mine, it doesn't sound like she was being sweet, but she was, because she was believing it. She believed me and loved me. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, those who accept or receive constructive criticism are hum among the wise. So not everybody that brings criticism to your heart is going to help, is trying to be kind to you. But I knew this girl was, and I like the idea of being wise, but you have to have the first part of the verse for the second part of the verse. We can't say, I don't really like that part, God, I just want this part. But she told me, after I picked my pen back up, and I was like, well, I'm just going to try something else. She very sweetly said, your writing is not good. Well, I can't think of anything more clear than someone that you love and someone that you are paying and someone who is an expert and who is a published author that tells you your writing is not good would be a good clear sign to stop. Okay, then, well, that just broke my heart. Thank you so much. In the name of Jesus. And it did hurt. And I did stop. But there was something down inside, and I know it was the Spirit. I knew that I was supposed to write something. And at this point, I had tried lots of different book ideas. But I did stop writing, again, the book part. I still wrote devotions. And a friend of mine, I was at a dinner, and this is over a period of years. This is not something that happened overnight. But I did quit, thinking this is not what God wanted me to do. I heard God wrong. And I even saw a vision. I don't know if y'all ever have visions from God, or even, I'm not a snake handler or anything, but I do believe in visions. But I was driving down the road one day and I saw 4 pieces of paper over my head. And God was like, these are your books. I'm like, yeah, but do you know I've been rejected? And I don't have a thing to say in those 4 books. And so all of these things happened over 13 years. So I was at a lunch with some friends, and after lunch, went back to a friend's house. Another author who's always just encouraged me and keep writing. She said, I think your first book is going to be your weight message on David. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling that. And I totally dissed it. And I had written a little Bible study called Trusting God for a Better Tomorrow on the Psalms. And that was another book that had been rejected. And my agent had set up a meeting for me to meet at a writer's conference with a person from David C. Cook. He had the manuscript for the Bible study in his hand. And he even said to me, I would really like to see this Bible study in a trade book. And a trade book is what Wait and See is. It's just a regular nonfiction book. So he's telling me, hey, kind of extending me this little olive branch. Hey, I'd really like to see this in a trade book. Yeah, but I'm a Bible study writer. So no, I'm rejecting somebody who is offering me a possible publishing deal. So again, God's still working. He's still, and I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to ever get a book. This is when I was to the point where I'm Blythe, that's my agent. Please tell me to stop. I promise I'm going to get the answer to your question. For me, it was learning one major lesson. I had a problem with someone else living my dream. I had terrible envy and jealousy in my heart for all my sisters in Christ that were publishing, and I wanted to be published so desperately. And to the point where I had no real joy for them in my heart when they got, oh, Tracy, yay. Down inside, I'm going, I've been speaking a lot longer than you. How are you getting your second book contract when I haven't? I mean, I'm sitting here having this conversation in my head with Tracy, not out loud, but face to face, I'm acting false to her that I'm excited for her. And one of the girls still that had not been published was Amy Carroll. And she announced that she had got a publishing contract. And as sure as I'm sitting here with you, I've heard in my spirit, this is your last chance. Are you going to really enjoy the success of someone else? Or are we done here? I'm paraphrasing for God, but that is what I sensed him say. So for me, I knew that that lesson was over because I truly had I had connected with God, I had experienced God through the way. I had allowed him to heal me from rejections. I had allowed somebody to critically tell me, your writing is not good, and learn from it. That's so hard when somebody tells you that. To receive constructive criticism, be at home among the lies, and take that to heart. And I believe I received the lessons, and I learned the lessons that I needed to learn. So when I just was able to truly, celebrate with Amy, it was about 6 months later that I received my contract with David C. Cook. And the Lord was like, this is the book I want you to write. It's this message right here. And I'm like, well, the message is only 4 points, and I have to write 8, 9 chapters, and how am I going to do that? And I'll fill in the blanks. So I just started writing. So summing up to answer your question, how do you know? You have to be able to recognize the voice of God in your life. God is an individual God, and he is going to speak to you individually in your own manner and in your own way. Maybe it's through nature, maybe it's through music. I know it's through his word. We're certainly not going to know what he has to say to us if we don't read his word every day. And we certainly don't have the right to get mad at him if we're not spending any time with him. You're not going to, your best friend's voice when you pick up the phone, not just because you see her picture that pops up on your phone, but because you know her voice. That's the same way we should treat God as our best friend. And we'll get to that place. I promise you'll get to that place that this is not what he wants me to do. And he'll make it clear. He will open doors. Sometimes that will lead you to painful places, but the painful places are to grow you, to teach you his self-sufficiency in those moments, and to strengthen you, and to show you you're strong enough to go through trials of life. There's so many teachable moments in the wait. But bottom line is, you will know. You'll know that you know that you know, because you know God. And the only way to know God is to spend time with him. So that's probably a really long answer. And it's the Sunday school answer, but it's the truth. Any other questions? No?
If there's no other questions, are you sure? Last call. You're right, you can't see anything.
I told you can't see a thing.
And I even turned them down.
Did you turn them down while I was talking?
Yeah, the very beginning.
Yes.
Okay, I thought they were going down. I was like, okay,
I was hoping that would
either
help
it's
you.
the lights going down or I'm going out. Something's happening. It's dimming right here.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for having me. I hope y'all have a fun week. I hope it warms up a little bit.
It should.
Warms up a little bit, and so you're dismissed.
All right. What time does it say?